Hey everybody, I'm Leon Thomas. That's Miranda Kitterlin Lynch. We're the co-host of Checking In, a Lodging DEI Chat. Thanks for joining us today. Hey Miranda, how are you? What's happening? Good.
Hey, Leon, everything good is happening. How are you?
Everything is good. I am just outstanding. You see, I have my racquetball t-shirt on. You know, I shouldn't say my racquetball t-shirt because it sounds like I only have one. If I say a racquetball t-shirt, now I have more than one because it's the greatest sport ever. And I played this afternoon, and so I'm back ready for the
Awesome.
show. I don't know if we'll have any other opportunity to bring up racquetball during the show, so I just thought I'd drop
Okay,
it in now.
but do you have more racquetball shirts or more Maryland sports team shirts?
Oh, definitely more racquetball shirts.
Okay.
I only have one Maryland sports team shirt, and
Oh
that
my
is a
goodness.
Baltimore Oriole t-shirt. That's it. Yeah,
Wow.
that's all I have. Yeah.
I'm
So,
surprised.
yeah. Now how many racquetball shirts do you have?
I will admit I'm at zero, but I will have to correct that.
All right.
I'm
All
on it.
right.
I'm on it.
All right. Cool. Cool. So we're here for episode what? What number are we on,
I
Miranda?
was just trying
Episode
to count them up. All I know is we're in season 2. I want to say it's episode 16. You know what?
Let's
I'm going to
go
say
with
it.
that.
It's episode 16. I've said it. It's true.
Let's go with it. Let's go with it. That's what we're on, episode 16. Looking forward to a great conversation with our guest, David Kong. Why don't you go ahead and tell us some things about him and we'll bring him on the scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a big fan of his and everything that he and DEI Advisors is doing. I have just been so impressed with every initiative that they have launched. I'd like to let him share a little bit more about how this came about and what their plans are for the future. So, if we want to go ahead and bring on Mr. Kong, that would be great. Hi, David. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. Greetings, everyone. Miranda and Leon, so good to see you.
You as
David.
well. You as well. So I didn't want to go too deeply into your intro because I want our listeners to hear it from you. Tell us about DEI advisors. I would be incredibly surprised if people listening have not heard of DEI advisors, but I'd love to hear from you how this started, what you guys are doing, and what you're planning to do next.
Well, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to talk about DEI advisors, something that I'm very passionate and dedicated to. I founded DEI advisors when I retired from Best Western Hotels and Resorts. And the reason that I founded this nonprofit organization is because when I was CEO for 19 years at Best Western, I would be invited to a lot of CEO panels at industry conferences, and it would always strike me as odd that I would be the lone token minority representation. There would be no women or any other person of color. And I always thought that women should be deserving of opportunities to become CEOs. It's nothing against any of the white men CEOs that I've uh, been friends with and that I greatly respect and admire. Nothing against them. They all worked hard to get to where they are today. But I think minorities, women in particular, should be given an opportunity to advance their career as well. So upon my retirement, I decided to dedicate some time to researching how I can help them. And I found that most of the major hotel companies, such as Marriott, Hilton, IHG, Hyatt, Choice, Wyndham, they all have very good diversity programs. They focus on attracting diverse talent. They have development programs for them. They even set targets to promote them. And some of them even have their board committees involved in providing oversight and direction. And I thought, wow, these are really wonderful programs. There isn't a lot of value that I can add to this. And I thought, well, maybe the way that I can help is self empowerment. And the reason I came to that idea is because I've interviewed a lot of people in my career. And I found that sometimes, especially those of us in the underrepresented groups, sometimes we undersell ourselves or we put artificial ceilings on ourselves. We have self imposed challenges things like we have this negative self-talk that we give ourselves that we're not good enough, or just the way that we think about things that if we just work hard and head down and people will eventually notice and we get ahead, but such is not the case. We have to learn how to network and find advocates and mentors to help with our career. So I thought maybe what I can do is to help people to empower themselves to achieve their career aspiration. And the way that we do that at DEI Advisors is we interview accomplished leaders, people that are well respected in the industry, CEOs of major hotel companies, all the C-suite individuals in different hotel companies, and get their perspectives, advice, and learnings. See how they, how people hear about their life stories and how they eventually got to where they are today. And perhaps that would provide inspiration and motivation. We also ask these leaders a lot of questions about, the self-doubt, the hat trash that I talked about earlier, advice on networking, advice on a variety of different themes that we've uncovered to help individuals advance their career.
I think that's so valuable. And how many interviews? I was trying to look before we started the show.
I think we're about 200 interviews now.
What an incredible.
Which means we're tremendous content. If you go to YouTube, there's a whole library of different interviews, and you can watch a whole series of CEO interviews. Tony Capano, Pat Pacious, and Jeff Bellotti, and all these well-known respected CEOs have all been interviewed by us, and their stories are just so inspiring. And I urge everyone to at least watch at least one interview.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I know that my students have often asked me about these interviews. They find it to be an incredible resource, especially for people who are young in their hospitality careers. So thank you so much for doing that for our industry. I would like to ask you, and this is probably a heavy hitter question that I should save for later, but I'm so curious, in your interviews, is there anything that has surprised you that you would want people to hear? Is there anything that someone has shared that you either had an aha moment or a huh?
Okay. I remember interviewing Mary Lee, who was the CEO of Atlas. They are a company stationed in, I think, in Asia. She's in Singapore, but it's a global company. They basically provide very rich content to empower individuals to research airlines and find themselves the best value in terms of air flights. And she's founded 2 companies in her career. She's very, very accomplished woman. And during the interview, I asked her about imposter syndrome. And she openly admitted that she had these negative thoughts that she's a fraud, despite all her accomplishments, that she thought she's a fraud sometimes. And I think she was very emotional when she talked about the importance of self-care, how she actually suffered from mental breakdown and how she eventually recovered by learning to take care of herself, meditation and just exercise and different things. And I thought, her vulnerability is so inspiring because a lot of people struggle with these issues. And she openly talked about it. She had thousands of views, this interview, and she openly admitted it, showing that, hey, if I can make improvements, anyone can make improvements. I'm not afraid to admit that I need help. And this is how I got my help, and this is what I'm doing. And I thought that is just so exceptional and amazing that she would be so vulnerable and share some intimate details about what she struggles with. That was exceptional.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And can you repeat the name just so our listeners didn't miss it? And I also want to write it down so I can go watch it again.
Mary Lee, L-I is her last name.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very vulnerable. That's also very brave, but also very, very helpful to so many people who are probably struggling in silence and solitude. So yeah, very big props to Miss Lee for doing that. Leon?
Hello, everyone. Mentalist Doug Roy here. On Thursday, April 11th, I will perform a benefit Zoom mentalism show for the Lori Lundeen Foundation. In this show, I will perform fun and interactive mind-bending feats that simply destroy logic, such as mind reading, predictions, and acts of clairvoyance. All proceeds for this show will go to the Lori Lundeen Foundation, a charitable outreach to those in need throughout the world. To purchase tickets for this virtual event, simply go to lorilundeen.com. We look forward to having you join us on Thursday, April 11th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific for this benefit Zoom mentalism show. It's a show you won't want to miss. To learn more, just go to lorilundeen.com. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you.
David, at the beginning of our conversation, one of the things you said was that when you attended meetings with CEOs and other C-suite executives that you didn't see women. Now, in my hotel experience, when I started working in hotels 35 years ago, my first general manager was female, and the assistant GM was female, and the VP of operations was a lady. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool, because if ladies are in leadership, I know that it's going to be the black guy's time really soon, right? That's the way I look at it. And when I went to my first hotel conference, I'm looking around and all I saw was white men, other than the three ladies from my management company, right? And of course, there weren't any other, there was one other black guy there. So for you to bring on board DEI advisors and to say that you want to do things to help make sure that there's better representation, particularly for females, that sends a message for other minorities as well, right? That if white ladies are accepted, there's going to be time for black ladies, there's going to be time for black men. So I appreciate what you're doing. Now, with that, what does it take for our industry as a whole to really make a change, to make sure that we have well represented hotels, ownership groups, management companies, hotel companies, franchises? What does it take? What do you see as the 3 or 4 things that we need to do to continue on that positive diversity trend?
Leon, it's such a regrettable thing that you just talked about, and I used to attend these conferences, and like you said, it's a sea of white men. You don't see very many minority representation, but thankfully things are improving. For example, I was at the American Lodging Investment Summit just in January, a few months ago, and I was very encouraged to see. I probably saw about 30-40% of the attendees that were female, and there were definitely other people of color represented at that conference. So I think the industry is awakening to the fact that we need to have more representation and leadership that's reflective of the customers that we serve. Our customers are diverse, and our leadership team must be diverse. Now, there's still a long ways to go. And I applaud companies like Hilton that have set a target that 50% of the general managers be female. I think the industry is recognizing that it's a problem, and it's also an opportunity for them. They have embraced diversity in a big way because they recognize that not only is it good for business, it's a business imperative. So, like, if you want to solve any problem, you have to first recognize that there is a problem. Once you accept that there is a problem, then you can find a solution to it. And I'm glad that the industry is recognizing that it's a problem and it's an opportunity, and they're doing something about it. So that's great, number one. Number two, I think the hotel companies are very, very good in coming up with these programs. And it takes executive leadership. And I'm glad that some of the boards are involved with these hotel companies. They are involved in the oversight and direction, like Hilton and Marriott have board oversight. I think it takes that. There needs to be a DEI or diversity committee on the board to provide that oversight. And I'm glad that a lot of hotel companies like Marriott, Hilton are actually hired, they report their progress via quarterly reports. It's part of the annual report, quarterly report. I think it's great, holding themselves accountable, but I think others should follow suit. Once you start publishing results, then you hold yourself accountable, and then you can make progress. The other thing that I would mention is I have great respect for Leslie Hale. She's the CEO of Inn-A Lodging. We need more Leslie Hale. She's exceptional in every way. And, as a Black woman, she has achieved the unthinkable. I mean, she's in a tremendous position. She's done wonders for that company. She benefited from mentorship, and people took a liking to her and made her into who she is today. People that have made it need to pay it forward. It's kind of like me. I like to help women and other people of color move ahead as well. We need more Leslie Hale as role models. And to get there, we need to be mentors for the aspiring individuals that want to move up. And we need to do our share to mentor them and help them. And once we have more Leslie Hale and we have more inspiration out there, then I think it gives people confidence that, hey, although I'm a Black woman, I can make it just like Leslie Hale because she's made it. Mm-hmm. I can make it.
Yeah.
So, you need those role models. We need more role models.
Okay, absolutely. One really quick question before we take a break. You heard Miranda and I talk about racquetball. Do you play racquetball? Have you played before?
I have played racquetball, but I have migrated to pickleball. I'm surprised you didn't.
Can I get my producer, Dr. Jay Rasenko, to end the show? Move him away. He's a pickleball player. Oh my. And yes, and then right on cue, Dr. J does that. We'll talk more later. But David, to learn more about why I wear this racquetball t-shirt, if you go to racquetballrevival.com, racquetballrevival.com, you'll learn about our youth racquetball program
that's great.
In Baltimore. I'm Leon Thomas with our co-host Miranda Kitterlin Lynch. You're watching Checking In, a Lodging DEI Chat. Our guest today is David Kong from DEI Advisors. This show is produced by the Leon Thomas Group. We provide opportunities for college students and recent grads that are interested in careers in broadcasting and other communication outlets. You're now going to watch 4 commercial-style videos that our team has worked on. And after that, we'll come back, and Miranda and I will tell you how you can be on the show, and we'll continue our conversation with David Kong. Here we go.
Renting is everything. It's style at your doorstep. Off the runway and into your closet. It's every trend you've been dying to try and every designer you've yet to discover. It's wearing it your way every time and making it count everywhere you go. It's never worrying about what to wear because something new is always coming your way. That's why renting is everything. New styles, top designers, all for a flat monthly fee. Start your subscription at renttherunway.com.
Slow roasted over hickory fire and pulled by hand. This is the way pit pork has always been done. Pulled pork lovers, rejoice. The smoky old days are back at the Smoke Shack. From the creative team that brought you The Browning Project and Dead by Morning comes a new thriller that will change the way you look at white-collar crime forever. Falling from the Sky.
Water. It's everywhere. We drink it, we bathe with it, we cook with it. Coffee's made with water. toilets won't flush without it. It's used for washing clothes, dishes, utensils, pots, pans, floors, and our teeth. Plants and crops need water, animals drink it, and fish need it too. And don't forget, we can have a lot of fun in the water. Water. What would we do without it?
Hey, welcome back to Checking In, a Lodging DEI Chat. I'm Leon Thomas. That's Miranda Kitterlin Lynch. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, you can send me an email. My email address is leon@theleonthomasgroup.com. And Miranda, how do they get in touch with you?
It's very easy. You can simply Google Miranda Kitterlin Lynch. I seriously doubt you're going to find another. Please let me know if you do. I'd love to connect.
I love it. I love it. Yes, please do. Now, Miranda, I want to make sure everyone knows they can watch us here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and everywhere else that we post the shows. But if you go to the Google and just search for Checking In a Lodging DI Chat podcast, all the podcast platforms that we're on, they'll show up. And so you can listen to us while you're in your car.
That's right. Or when you're working out, when you're walking the dog, anywhere that you can listen to something, you can listen to us.
Or as I did this morning. What's that? Go ahead.
Playing racquetball.
Playing racquetball. Yes, yes. You know,
I was just going to say, more important than listening to us would be listening to the people that come on the show, because
yes.
I think we're great, but I would argue that the real value is in our guests.
I think we're great too. Yes. Ask me if we're doing it. Ask me if the show's pretty good. Go ahead, ask me. Go ahead, ask.
Is it any good?
Yo, it's awesome. See, there it is right there. You just heard it right from us. This morning, I listened to one of our shows while in the dentist's office. Yes, I had a dental cleaning appointment. Yeah, and she says, "What do you want to listen to?" I said, "I have my own stuff here." So put my headphones in, and I was chilling, listening to our show with our recent guest, Greg DeShields.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
so we're on it. Let's bring our guest David Kong back on. Having a great conversation with him. Now, David, we're not going to go back to where we were immediately before we went into break, where you told me you're a pickleball player. Yeah. We'll just forget all that. We'll allow you to stay on this show. So I'm going to go ahead and ask a question. And then after this, Miranda, I'll send it to you for the remainder. So, excuse me. So, David, you talked about mentorship. And growing up in the business, I had outstanding mentors. Craig Poole with Reading Hospitality, the owner of the Doubletree in Reading, Pennsylvania. Um, Started working with the management company that I worked for a while. Great mentor to me, Michael Harold, now deceased, former CEO of Vista Host Hotel Management, Mark Zelaznik, um, VP of Revenue Management, retired from Vista Host. I had great mentors. How does someone who wants a mentor, what's the best way to establish that relationship? Is it to approach them and say, "I want to learn from you," or is it to say, wait for the mentor to reach out to you? What do you suggest? How does
Well,
one engage with a mentor?
if you have someone who would come to you directly and say, "I want to mentor you," you are very, very lucky. Most of us are not that lucky. So we cannot wait for someone to approach us proactively. We have to be proactive in finding mentors ourselves. Mentors are invaluable in helping us with our career. Mentors can take the shape of formal or informal. If you want a formal mentor, just go up to someone and ask that person to be a mentor. I've been asked many times, and I've always obliged, because I think it's a privilege. It's an honor. Someone would come to me and ask me to help them think about something or help them with a career. I'm more than happy to. We're all human beings. We like to help other people. So if you go up to other people, they most likely will oblige as well. But if you don't want to ask someone to be a formal mentor, there are all kinds of opportunities to have informal mentors. You can observe other people in action, what they do, and try to emulate whatever is effective in your mind, and try to not do whatever is ineffective. I've learned from plenty of very, very, very good bosses. They are empathetic. They help people with their career. I've learned from them. I've also learned from bosses from hell. They are really tough and toxic, and I learned what not to do. There was a guest on our show that said that every situation is a learning opportunity. I think she's absolutely right. Every situation is a learning opportunity because you can always learn something from it. And for that matter, every job is a learning opportunity. Um, sometimes I look back in my career and I think, well, I didn't learn anything from that job. Such is never the case. You might not gain anything from a technical standpoint, but you always learn how to deal with people, how to deal with situation. So every situation you're in is a learning opportunity. It's just whether or not we want to learn from it. So if you want to benefit from mentorship, you have to begin to become more introspective. I think that's really important to reflect on how you do things, why you do things, and learn from that.
I think that's such valuable wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I am a huge fan, not just in life, but in the classroom, of sharing and learning from mistakes. That to me has been the most impactful learning experience, not just my mistakes, but hearing from the mistakes of others who are humble and generous enough to share them. In regards to DEI efforts, and you don't have to give details about who, what, when, where, but in your rich experience in the industry, what DEI efforts or initiatives have you seen just crash, burn, and fail miserably? What is a mistake that you have witnessed with probably the best intentions that was simply a mistake?
Yeah, you know, these mistakes are, these failures are usually as a result of just paying something lip service and not really think about why you're doing it. So some companies might say, "Oh, we have a very good DEI program," but they're just going through the motion. They don't. Their heart is really not into it. As an example, they might assemble a very diverse group of people around the table. Is that diversity? That's diversity because you have a diverse representation around the table. But there's no equity if you're not paying attention to what they're saying. To capture the true benefit of DEI, you have to have not only diversity, but equity and inclusion. So if you assemble a diverse group of talent, you cannot capitalize on the benefit of that diversity without valuing everybody's opinion, without seeking out their opinions and really listening to them and pay attention to them and maybe do something about their opinion. That's inclusion. Equity is really about rethinking what's fair. When you say, I want to be fair, and you give everybody a bicycle, that's fair, right? Everyone is treated fairly because they're treated equally. But sometimes that's not equity, because what if there was a person with disability and can't ride the bicycle? How is he going to use a bicycle? That's not equity. So if you want to capitalize on the true value of diversity, you have to have equity and you have to have inclusion.
That I could not agree more. Thank you. Thank you. Leon, did you have anything you wanted to jump into?
One of the things that in that question, Miranda, you asked about mistakes, and I'm going to share one that I experienced. So, David, the company that I was working for started this new diversity and inclusion initiative. And part of it was that all of the employees had to attend a 4-hour diversity training session. So right away, I'm thinking 4 hours to change attitudes, 4 hours to change perspectives. It ain't gonna happen, but I'll go anyway. I'll go. So as I'm sitting there, the trainer, who supposedly is a diversity expert, asks for volunteers to come to the front of the room. And I raised my hand, and this we're talking 5, 6 minutes into the class. I raised my hand and he said, "Slide the chairs out, make room, come on up, big guy, come on up, big guy." And I'm going, this is useless. He's saying slide the chairs out of the way and come on up, big guy. And he's supposed to be teaching us how to be diverse and inclusive. So when you talk about mistakes, that's one that comes to mind, is even in that training that went on. Now, when I reported it up the line, they told me I was overreacting, that I'm taking it the wrong way. And I said, no, no, no. This is diversity and inclusion. And this is what the guy said. In 4 hours isn't going to make it anyway. So anyway, that's my story. I get a rant every show. Miranda knows that's my rant for today. That's it. You can comment if you want, or we can go back to Miranda. Your choice. That's it. My rant's over. I'm done.
Deep breath, Leon. Deep breath.
Well, let me just comment on that, Leon. Diversity is not easy, because if you want to value diversity, you've got to pay attention to everybody. And sometimes the opinions are very, very diverse. And then you don't know what to do because there's such diverse opinions. And it takes a long time to build consensus in a very respectful and engaging way. It takes a very, very long time to build consensus. That's why a lot of companies don't do a good job with diversity. It's much easier to take the command and control model, just dictate, right. and don't pay any attention to what people have to say.
Yeah.
But that's why diversity programs fail, because they can't model the behavior that they're trying to advocate.
Right. Miranda, let's go with one more question from you, and then we'll bring out the signature questions of the day. Go ahead. One more from you.
Yeah. So I was thinking along the lines of mistakes, and I was thinking introspectively. I know that in years past, I have made the mistake of not being intentional. And a very specific example is bringing guest speakers into the classroom. I love bringing a guest speaker in. I do it probably 75% of my in-person time with my students is with guest speakers, because I think that's the real way to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening in industry. And I realized several years ago that I was not being intentional in selecting diverse guests. I was being intentional in selecting people that I respect and that I see as being leaders in the industry and that are doing great things. However, I was not really paying attention to who I was putting as the face of leadership in front of my students. Again, through no reason other than simply not being intentional and not being aware of my mistake. Thankfully, some great people brought it to my attention. I was able to course correct and intentionally seek out a diverse group of fantastic leaders to bring into the class. I'm wondering if you've seen this in industry, and I've seen this in hiring as well, because sometimes when we know someone who we think would be great for a position, we immediately think, oh, let me recommend them. But we may not always be intentional in seeking out diverse candidates. And again, through no malicious intent, but simply not being as aware about the importance of intentionality. Have you seen this in your experience? And if so, have you seen this? How have you been able to gently correct it, or how do you think it could be fixed? Maybe I'm not sure what the exact question is. It's just something that I've noticed that I think if it happened to me, surely it's happened to other people, and maybe we can help it keep from happening as often.
Yeah, what you just described is not uncommon. You know, sometimes we're just busy and we want to have really good guests on our show, and sometimes you're not paying enough attention to Is that fair representation of what we're trying to do? So it goes back to your intentionality can apply to so many things. And I think it's really important to think about what is our objective. And if you're inviting guests to be on your show, you want that person to provide inspiration and motivation and give good advice. But it's also to have good role models that others can emulate. That's why it's important to have diverse guests, successful people who have made it. They act as role models for those that are struggling with their career. So intentionality is great, but you have to be clear about your objectives. And we were saying earlier, it's so much easier if you just dictated what you want to do as if I was CEO having a meeting with my exec committee, my meetings could be 15 minutes long if I just dictated everything. That would be so easy, right? And people wouldn't resent having to sit in a meeting room for 2 hours or 3 hours. But if you want to listen to what other people say and you want to practice active listening skills and really probe to make sure everyone has a chance to speak their mind, that's hard. It takes a long time. And even though you might be intentional that you want to do that, sometimes it's just too hard. You don't get to do that. So I think we have to recognize that there's a trade-off and it's a balance, and you just have to find what that right balance is, depending on what it is that you're doing. But going back to the objective, I think is the most important thing.
Right on.
Thank you so much. Go ahead,
David,
Leon. I know you have the other ring.
Yes, it's now time for our 2 signature questions of the day. David, do you have a pen handy? If not, okay, there we go. Hold it up, and we're going to hold our pens up. Go ahead, bring it up, and let's all pretend we're drawing our signatures. It's time for the 2 signature questions of the show. David, the 2 signature questions of the show. One comes from me, one comes from Miranda. Mine's pretty easy. Have you ever, we already talked about racquetball, so it's not a racquetball question. Have you ever had a Maryland crab cake?
Of course. That happens to be one of my favorite things to eat.
Oh, love it. Love it.
If I see that on the restaurant menu, it's calling my name.
Oh, so where did you eat where have you had Maryland crab cakes?
Well, certainly in your part of the world, I've had it. But I think there are some steakhouses like, oh God, what's that famous steakhouse? That's all over the country, that steakhouse. They have that on the menu too.
Ruth's Chris?
Ruth Chris. Yeah.
Ruth but that's, if you're at a Ruth's Chris in Kansas, is it a Maryland crab cake?
I don't know how they do it, but they call it Maryland crab cake.
They call it a Maryland crab cake. The reason we ask is because on one of our shows, like before the show, we're talking about food somehow, and the guest said they had a Maryland crab cake. I'm like, oh, really? Where? They go, some barbecue joint in Kansas City. Stop! That's not a Maryland crab cake. No, that's a Kansas City seafood blend. That's not it. So,
I mean, to be fair, Ruth's Chris is delicious. So,
I must say though, the first time I had a crab cake at Ruth's Chris was in Pittsburgh. And I said, you guys don't know anything about crab cake. And they brought it out like it was one of the appetizers. It was pretty good. It could have fooled me. Yeah, it was good. So that's our Maryland crab cake deal. Go ahead, Miranda.
All right. So my final question for you, David, if you could go back in time and tell your 20-year-old self one piece of advice, wisdom, encouragement, affirmation, anything, just one thing, what would it be?
Well, this might sound surprising to you because we are always telling our kids try harder, but I would tell my younger self, don't try so hard. Because, I look back, I've had a very long career, 50 years, and there were a lot of things that bothered me along the way. I can't even remember why they bothered me so much, but at the time they was just like the world is going to end. But the world didn't end, and things were just fine. But they worried me sick, and I was upset, and sometimes it even prevented me from being successful in my next endeavor. So I think when we make a mistake, we have to learn to forgive ourselves. It's not the mistakes themselves that define us. Everybody makes mistakes. It's how we react afterwards that defines us. Okay. And I think, pursuant to what I was saying about trying too hard, I when I was management trainee, I would finish one shift and go work another shift because I had my parents' work ethic. They worked really hard, so that's the way that I was brought up. And while that got me noticed and got me promoted and everything, I think there's a price that you pay for that. You sacrifice your personal well-being when all you think about is work. You're burning the candle on both ends. It's just not good for you. And I also think that we should be more grateful for all the things that have gone right. If we're more grateful, I think we'd be more happy. And I remember being really intense when I was climbing the ladder, trying to get the next position. I was very intense, very serious. I was not a fun person to be with because I was so driven. But if I could just appreciate all the things, all the nice things that happen along the way, I'll be a happier person. And those around me will also find happiness and joy. And I think that's really important to think about. Life is very short. Just like that, my 50 years is over. And my fame and glory is gone. Like I launched the firsthire.com. I don't think anyone remembered that I launched the firsthire.com. I built the database capabilities at Hyatt. I don't think anyone remembered that I built that. So all these achievements, while at the time seemed very gratifying, they're all for nothing. So in the long run, they don't mean anything. So I think it's more important to find joy and be happy.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
And this really echoes what I hear from a lot of people post-pandemic. I've heard from many friends, colleagues, et cetera, that was one of their great takeaways from that experience was kind of a realignment of priorities and less stress about the things that, as you said, no one's going to remember, 5-10 years from now. So thank you so much.
We hear that from our interns as well. You're talking. They're like, what are you stressing about? You're not even going to think about this in 2 weeks. Yeah. So it's interesting you mentioned that as well. David Kong, thank you for spending time with me and Miranda here on Checking In, a Lodging DEI Chat. I've enjoyed meeting you and enjoyed having you on the show. Thank you.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you very much.
Folks, this is Checking In, a Lodging DEI Chat. Our guest today has been David Kong with DEI Advisors. I'm Miranda. She's Leon. Wait a minute, I screwed that all up. Wait a minute, here we go. I'm Leon. She's Miranda. He's David. Thanks for watching, Checking In, a Lodging DEI Chat. We'll see you next time. Take care.